Welcome to G Fun Facts Online. Today, we are going to dismantle one of the most persistent myths in human history. It is a story you have likely heard before, perhaps in a geography class or a popular science book. It goes like this. On a tiny, isolated island in the Pacific, a civilization became so obsessed with building giant stone statues that they cut down every last tree to move them. They destroyed their environment, their soil eroded, their food ran out, and they descended into war and cannibalism. It is the ultimate parable of self-destruction, a warning of what happens when human ego outstrips natural resources. This is the story of Rapa Nui, or Easter Island, as told by the Western world for centuries. But I am here to tell you that this story is wrong. Thanks to groundbreaking research published in 2024 and 2025, specifically from teams at the Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory, we now know that the people of Rapa Nui did not commit ecocide. They did not recklessly destroy their paradise. Instead, they were the victims of a massive, invisible catastrophe that no amount of foresight could have predicted. They were hit by a century-long megadrought that turned their lush home into a dust bowl. And what happened next was not a collapse, but one of the most remarkable feats of engineering and survival in human history. Over the next 20 minutes, we are going to look at the evidence found in the mud of crater lakes, the physics of rock gardening, and the terrifying politics of the Birdman cult. We are going to uncover how the Rapa Nui people engineered their way through the dust, reinvented their gods, and survived against impossible odds, only to face a true apocalypse from across the sea. Let us begin by understanding the stage for this drama. Rapa Nui is the most isolated inhabited landmass on Earth. It is a speck of volcanic rock, just 63 square miles in size, drifting in the immense emptiness of the South Pacific. Its nearest neighbor, Pitcairn Island, is over 1,200 miles away. The coast of South America lies 2,300 miles to the east. This isolation is critical to the story, because once you are there is nowhere else to go. Unlike the lush tropical gardens of Tahiti or Hawaii, Rapa Nui is subtropical. It is cooler, windier, and significantly drier. But the real problem lies beneath the ground. The island is geologically young, which means its volcanic soil is incredibly porous. It acts like a giant sponge. When rain falls on Rapa Nui, it does not form winding rivers or gather in accessible valleys. It vanishes instantly. It filters deep into the subterranean lava tubes and flows out to sea. There are no permanent streams on the entire island. The only fresh water is found in 3 small crater lakes, Rano Kau, Rano Raraku, and Rano Aroi. When the first settlers arrived around 1200 CE, they brought the Polynesian package of crops: taro, yam, banana, sugarcane, and the sweet potato. They found a forest of giant palm trees that provided shade and wind protection. For 300 years, the society thrived. They built the famous platforms, the AHU, and carved the moai, moving millions of tons of rock. The population stabilized around 3,000 to 4,000 people. But then, the sky turned against them. In 2025 and 2026, researchers led by Redmond Stein and his colleagues extracted sediment cores from the crater lakes. They were looking for the chemical fingerprints of rain. By analyzing hydrogen isotopes in the waxy coatings of ancient preserved leaves buried in the mud, they reconstructed the rainfall history with unprecedented precision. The data revealed a massive sustained drop in precipitation starting around 1550 CE. This was not a dry summer. It was a hydrologic crash that lasted for over 150 years. This period coincides with the Little Ice Age, a time of global cooling. In the Pacific, the rain belt known as the Intertropical Convergence Zone likely shifted north, leaving Rapa Nui high and dry. Imagine the horror of those first decades. The rains became sporadic. The crater lake of Rano Raraku, the very quarry where the moai were carved, began to shrink. This was the spiritual industrial center of the island. As the water receded, the reeds used for thatching huts died back. The soil, exposed to the relentless Pacific winds, turned to dust. The forest could not regenerate in these arid conditions, especially with the rat infestation preventing palm nuts from sprouting. The loss of trees was not due to reckless logging. It was a result of the drought delivering a killing blow to a fragile ecosystem. By the year 1600, Rapa Nui was effectively a dust bowl. The traditional agricultural methods of slash and burn failed. A society based on surplus was suddenly facing starvation. In many civilizations, a climate shock of this magnitude triggers a swift collapse. But the Rapa Nui did not collapse. They had to innovate or die. Their response was a masterclass in agricultural engineering. They developed a technique known as lithic mulching or rock gardening. When early European explorers first saw the island, they thought the interior looked like a wasteland covered in rubble. They assumed the locals were too lazy to clear the stones. They were wrong. Those stones were the technology that saved the people. The Rapa Nui deliberately quarried and broke volcanic rocks into specific sizes and scattered them over their fields. This seems counterintuitive. How do you grow food in a rock pile? But the physics are brilliant. First, moisture retention. The rocks shade the soil, preventing the sun from baking the earth and stopping evaporation. In a drought, every drop of dew is trapped beneath the stones. Second, they act as a windbreak. The rough surface creates turbulence, slowing down the wind at ground level to stop the topsoil from blowing away. Third, fertilizer. As the volcanic basalt weathers, it releases calcium, magnesium, and phosphorus directly into the soil. And finally, temperature regulation. The rocks absorb heat during the day and release it at night, creating a stable microclimate. Recent satellite analysis shows these rock gardens covered up to 19% of the island. This was a massive industrial undertaking. Millions of stones were moved by hand to terraform the island. In these stone fields, they planted the resilient sweet potato, which became the caloric backbone of their survival. They also had to solve the water crisis. With the crater lakes receding and becoming stagnant, the Rapa Nui turned to the ocean. They discovered that fresh groundwater flowed through the lava tubes and emerged at the coast, bubbling up into the sea at low tide. This is known as coastal groundwater discharge. To capture this fleeing water, they built puna, massive stone wells located right at the shoreline. They dammed the flow, creating reservoirs where they could skim fresh or slightly brackish water off the top before it mixed with the brine. They survived by drinking water that would be considered too salty for modern standards, but their bodies adapted, and their low-salt diet of sweet potatoes helped balance their electrolyte intake. They literally wrung life out of the stone and the sea. As the drought deepened, the social and spiritual fabric of the island began to tear. For centuries, the Rapa Nui had relied on the moai. These statues represented the ancestors, who ensured the fertility of the land. The deal was simple. The people built the statues, and the ancestors provided rain. But for 100 years the ancestors remained silent. The rain did not come. The collapse theory posits that the Rapa Nui toppled the statues in a civil war. However, the cessation of moai carving around 1550 makes rational sense in the context of the drought. The resources to move them were gone, but more importantly, the moai had failed. Why invest energy in a 40-ton statue when the god it represents has stopped listening? The quarries fell silent because the society pivoted. They needed a new kind of god, one that was more immediate and directly connected to fertility. Out of the dust rose the cult of Makemake. Makemake was a creator god, depicted as a mask-like face with huge staring eyes. As the moai cult faded, the worship of Makemake centered on a new, terrifying ritual to determine leadership, the Tangata Manu, or Birdman ceremony. The center of power shifted from the open plains to the dramatic cliffs of Orongo, a village perched on the razor's edge of the Rano Kau crater. The ritual was a direct response to scarcity. Every spring the sooty tern would arrive to nest on Motu Nui, a tiny islet just off the coast. The birds brought eggs, a concentrated source of protein. The competition was brutal. Each clan selected a champion to swim through the shark-infested waters to Motu Nui. They would wait in caves for days or weeks, watching the sky. The first man to find an egg, strap it to his forehead, swim back through the surf, and climb the vertical sea cliffs to Orongo would win. But he didn't win for himself. He won for his master, the head of his clan. The master was declared the Birdman. For 1 year he was the living avatar of Makemake. Crucially, his clan gained the exclusive right to collect the bird eggs for that year. This was a political system born of drought. It replaced open warfare with ritualized competition, ensuring that power and resource rights rotated between the clans. It was a mechanism to distribute scarcity without destroying the society. By 1700, the drought began to ease. The Rapa Nui had weathered the storm. They had a functioning society, a new religion, highly adapted agriculture, and a stable population. They were survivors. But then, the real apocalypse arrived. On Easter Sunday, 1722, 3 Dutch ships appeared on the horizon. This was the beginning of the end. The Rapa Nui had no immunity to the invisible cargo the Europeans brought: smallpox, syphilis, tuberculosis, and influenza. The impact was catastrophic. But the final blow came in 1862. Peruvian slave raiders arrived. They captured over 1,500 Rapa Nui, including the king and the wise men who knew how to read the Rongo script. They were hauled off to work in the guano mines of Peru. Almost all of them died. When international pressure forced Peru to return the survivors, only 15 made it back alive. And they brought smallpox with them. The resulting epidemic killed almost everyone who remained. By 1877, the population of Rapa Nui, which had survived a century of dust and hunger, was reduced to 111 people. This was the collapse. It was not caused by cutting down trees. It was caused by the collision with the outside world. Yet, the Rapa Nui culture was not extinguished. Those 111 survivors carried the weight of their ancestors. We see their resilience in figures like Angada, a prophetess who led a rebellion in 1914 against the foreign company that had turned the island into a sheep ranch. Today, the Rapa Nui people have reclaimed much of their heritage. They manage the national park and are reviving their language. The lesson of Rapa Nui is not one of failure. It is one of the greatest survival stories in human history. When the sky turned to dust, they moved the rocks, they caught the rain, they swam with sharks, and they endured. In a world facing its own climate crisis, Rapa Nui is no longer a warning of what happens when we are foolish. It is a beacon of what is possible when we are determined to survive. Thank you for listening to G Fun Facts Online.